How's it going?
Righty-ho. Pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good. I am very excited in a subdued way for today's topic. Not excited because I'm sure we're going to get a lot of discussion. Not excited because kind of a terrible topic.
Yeah. Yep. I'm 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 very excited to see everything really. I'm kind of boiling over with excitement to see how this is gonna go.
Yeah. I guess we'll see how many people have read the name, said that it's good, and then just accepted that as fact.
And see who has an opinion on this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, to anyone listening live and listening to the recording, this is the Wake Up America podcast. Today is day 9. We're talking about the Equality Act, and it's pretty much going to turn into a debate about LGBTQ rights, LGBTQ plus, I should say. Um,
Yeah, you got to
so
remember
yeah,
genders.
that's what we're talking about today. My name is Spencer, and we have. My name is Colson. Dang it. Spencer's over here. He's with me today, and I totally just blundered it there. But we are open to clean and civil comments. So please, if you're tuning in live, keep them clean, keep them civil. Don't be cussing stuff like that, and try to sound smart. Don't just be spouting a bunch of regurgitated stuff. Make sure you're backing whatever you say up with facts. So if you make a claim, then you better back it up.
Right.
Unless it's like a religious claim, and then you don't really have to go find stuff like that if you don't want to. Just keep it clean, keep it smart, stuff like that. Oh wow, we're at our first comment for today.
All right, sure. Let's play that before we start.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, guys? Been listening to you guys for a minute. Caught a couple of your shows. I'm Real Talk All Day from the UPC podcast group. I have a segment called Ask a Cop, and I was wondering if either one of you would like to be on my segment. Usually, people bring questions that are police related or topics, and we discuss them. But I can, in general, discuss anything, in regards to politics or society. A little bit about me. I am the host, so I've been a police officer for 3 years, major city. But this goes out to you, Herring One and Spencer. If you guys want to come on the show or maybe set up a time, feel free to just message me on Instagram by hitting my face and following the link.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll be able to do
thank you
that.
for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
we really appreciate our law enforcement officers. They have been facing a lot of flack right now, as you probably know, and we really appreciate all that you guys do for us.
Absolutely, 100% with you guys all the way. Back to blue.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so today talking about the Equality Act. I'm expecting some pretty heated debate today. So, like I said, make sure you keep it clean, guys. I do expect that some people are going to have some strong opinions on this or whatever it may be. For anyone that does not know what the Equality Act is, do a search on Google real quick.
It
Use your
is,
choice of.
yeah, it is not the Civil Rights Act
Yeah, no,
from a
it's not the
couple
Civil Rights
decades.
Act. Yeah, you might find that and the results, but make sure you find the Equality Act. Um, it was proposed in 2019. It did not go through. It did not get approved, and now it's going through now in 2021. It already has been approved by the House, so make sure you're looking for that stuff. For anyone that's just for anyone who wants, what we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to be citing from a couple different news sources and also from the Congress website itself. So we are prepared for some debate today.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and kind of get right into it. So, kind of the background for this bill that they're proposing is that in 1964 there was the Civil Rights Act, and what that act did, and I think just about everyone can agree that it was a good thing. It said that you basically have to treat people the same. You have to pay them the same for the same amount of work, whether they were whichever sex they were, whether they were male or female, or if their skin tone was black, brown, white, anything. It basically guaranteed rights across the two genders and the various races. So I think everyone can agree that that is a good thing. But that is not what this bill is. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a little bit of a hot button topic. So, the Equality Act takes the Civil Rights Act to a different level. It focuses specifically on LGBTQ rights. Mainly, it sets up precedents for what it says in the bill is that it's gonna, it's defending gender equality by saying, creating definitions for gender. What's the word I'm thinking for there, Spencer? It starts with a D. Gender identity, yeah. Gender discrimination, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Gender discrimination, so it's setting up stuff for that. And this would sound like not a bad bill. It kind of caught my attention because it seemed like we already had something like this that was called the Civil Rights Act, or the amendments to the Constitution. So this kind of caught my eye, and we got involved in this. It's been very, very hidden on media, so if you have a hard time finding a lot of information about it, there's a reason why. It's because they're not talking about it, because if nobody talks about it, it's a lot easier to pass it. The consequences of this act go a lot further than just creating just trying to get rid of gender discrimination. That's gender discrimination based on whether it doesn't talk about boy girl gender discrimination. It's talking about discrimination against like gender identity. For instance, saying that you can't have someone be discriminatory against someone who says that they are transgender or they're LGBTQ infinity. You can't be biased against them. The consequences of the act. Sorry, I kind of got off that. The consequences of the act go a lot further, though. This act does not just ban discrimination, where you would see things like for instance, discrimination in terms of the civil rights movement for Black people was the end of segregation, right? Very good thing. We can all say, I'm pretty sure we all support that. Go ahead, Spencer.
I was just agreeing that was a very good thing.
Yeah.
And this bill it's almost going against a lot of that. If you actually read the definition of the term discrimination is just basically making a choice between two options or more with your best judgment. That's all discrimination is. Now, we usually give it a negative context in America, especially against people, but the basic definition is just making a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's about making choices. And there are some people who choose to be LGBTQ. A lot of people may choose to feel one way leaning into that and then choose against that. Let's just go ahead and give this statistic right off the bat here. We have defined on Wikipedia from a couple different sources, 64% of children have gender dysphoria. That means that they don't know if they might have been born a male, but they feel like they are both, or they feel like they're a girl. That's what gender dysphoria is. But of those 64% of children who have gender dysphoria, 94% of them grow out of that identity of having gender dysphoria. 94%. Okay.
Right.
And we're going to get into why this is really important later.
Yeah, and that 64% of children, I guarantee you that whatever studies led to that percentage, I guarantee you it's much smaller, just because a lot of kids, right? You have people that say, "Oh, she's a tomboy," or various other things, or a boy will sometimes look at his mom and say, I like my mom, so I'm going to, I don't know, play in a dress for a little bit. But you can't really ask a kid, do you feel like you were born into the wrong body? Because a kid wipes his boogers on his pants and thinks it's funny. So I think that statistic is even less than what it actually says. But that 94% is really important, because the suicide rate of people that have gender dysphoria, right? Um, it's terrible to think about anyone committing suicide. Um, but people that have gender dysphoria have I think it's a 43% suicide rate. And when you are looking at kids that have a 94, 96, I don't remember, percent chance of getting out of that group, there's no question that you want them to get out of that so that they'll be able to avoid that high suicide rate.
Absolutely, yeah. And this whole bill kind of puts this whole thing on stilts and makes it really more of a hot button topic. Looking at the bill right now, section 3, paragraph 3, sorry, section 2, paragraph 3, it talks about how LGBTQ people commonly experience discrimination in things like restaurants, senior centers, stores, places of establishment that provide entertainment, healthcare facilities, shelters, government offices, youth service providers, etc. And here's how I look at this. Not everybody in the world is LGBTQ. In fact, actually, a very, 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 very small portion of the world is LGBTQ, but they are such an outspoken group that it feels like more. I don't know about you, but I personally have a bit of an issue when I'm doing things like activities or whatever it might be I'm doing, sports or whatever. When I'm changing and there might be another guy in the locker room who's gay. I mean, that's just, if you ask me, that's a little bit weird. That's like having that's like having a guy who's straight in the women's locker room, right? That's a little awkward for everybody involved. But this bill removes that and calls a view on having, feeling like people, who are gay, having them in men's restrooms, or lesbian in girls' restrooms, or transgender and they can go in both. That is making instances where people feel that that's not okay. It's turning that into discrimination. So this bill has the effect that it will allow anybody into any bathroom or any locker room that they so desire. If let's say I'm a guy and I'm a male, obviously, and I am going to identify as transgender, I am now allowed in both the men's locker room and the girls' locker room at any point in time for any sport that I want. Doesn't matter if it's a women's sport or a men's sport. I'm now allowed in both bathrooms at any point in time. To say otherwise is gender discrimination and has legal consequences, okay? That's what this bill is actually about. That's really, really bad.
Yeah, this bill puts it so that if you say you don't want a guy who thinks he's a girl in the women's locker room or the women's bathroom or any women's only area, right? Those places are women's only because of very specific reasons, whether they're getting changed or they're going to the restroom or various stuff like that. This bill says, well, if you don't support that and you don't allow that, then you're legally held. It's going to be legally held against you for believing that. And right, the belief that I shouldn't pay women as the same as men was done away with the Civil Rights Act, and that is a terrible way of thinking because women and men have the same inherent worth. However, when you have a situation where you have a guy who thinks he's a girl in a girls only area, this bill would make it on that same level where I can't discriminate against him, even though he is not a biological female. That is how it is supposed to work. But as soon as they do this, then it throws out all the people that have a traditional view on things, whether that's marriage or biological sex. As soon as this bill would get passed, all those people would be pushed under the bus because they don't believe in what this bill is saying.
Absolutely. And we're going to be going into looking at this from a religious point of view and going and even more so into consequences of this bill and stuff like that. But real quick, we'll go ahead and take one of our messages here.
1.9 trillion for the COVID package. Woohoo!
No. Not a fan.
That's
yeah, there's a lot of hidden stuff in that. Yeah, not part of the topic, but real quick, there's not a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in that bill that has nothing to do with COVID. That's just about gaining power. So do some more research into that before you support it.
I guess I'm not really the best person to have comment on this because I'm actually not a very big supporter of the 64 Civil Rights Act myself, but more so when it comes to business. But, my whole thing is this. We have to start articulating what can't people do in society. So when it came to the articulation of civil rights, it was, well, do people have the right to ride the bus? Do they have the right to go to this school? Do they have the right to do X, Y, and Z? And the answer was no. But if you look at our society and you ask yourself, well, what can't people who are homosexual do? What can't people who are trans do that, let's say, I, a black man, can do, or you, whoever you guys are, can do? Then the answer is nothing. People can do exactly what they want to do. You can't turn down somebody from housing because they're gay or because they're trans. It doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. That is completely true. But people see things through a very restricted lens, and they have created a false narrative that there is bias in these kind of things. And I would say there's bias in some things, like obviously if you're a football team, right, and you don't want, if you're a bunch of guys getting changed to go, play football, you don't want a gay dude or someone, especially people who are very gay and very outspoken about it. There's nothing more awkward than a locker room full of guys and everyone knows that this one dude is gay and he's walking around naked the same as all the rest of you. That's just weird. That ain't right. So I mean, those are instances where people look at that and they say, "Oh, that's discrimination." I say, "Oh no, that's not discrimination. That's just making everyone else feel okay because everyone else realizes that this is just weird to have this." So I'm not saying that gay people are bad and that gay people can't be a part of sports, but they just, first off, if you want to be a part of things like football team, don't be outspoken about it, make everyone around you awkward all the time. But there is no such thing as bias against LGBTQ that prohibits them from getting jobs or prohibits them from making the same pay as everyone else. People just think that there is, but this bill will actually create real discrimination. It will create discrimination against both men and women, but more so women.
Right.
Here's a good instance of it. West Virginia and California both have bills that have been passed in their state legislature that are very similar to this bill. And they have, protections for LGBTQ people inside the state, to the point that there was actually a biological male who had not had gender reassignment surgery or anything like that. It's totally just a guy that identified as transgender, and he enrolled in women's track and crushed it. I mean, he was a track guy. You could see it through him. He was very, very fast. And obviously, men biologically have more strength than women. So that's not a sexist comment. That's just a biological fact. And so he was faster than the girls, and he was able to easily beat them multiple times. The girls were obviously outraged that they weren't even able to at all compete. I mean, both friends and the people that were competing with each other, they were outraged all over that they weren't able to compete because this boy was, well, that's weird.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you, yeah. Can everyone still hear us? Leave a comment or something if you can. Just put some stuff in, see if we can hear you.
Yeah. And I'll go back to the gay couple buying a house real quick, just to use that as an example. in that case, if there is a religious Christian who believes that he shouldn't sell a house to a gay couple for whatever reason, whether he thinks that if he's providing services for them, he's supporting them, and that's against his religion, whatever the reasoning behind it is, if he doesn't give them service because they are gay, then a couple things are going to happen. One, the gay couple can say, okay, then we're not going to buy from you ever again. And that person just lost not only that sale, but any future sales they would have gotten from that group. And then that couple can go out and say, look, they didn't give us service. And then maybe there's some more people that won't buy from them. So I think where the laws are right now, it is fine, because our laws, especially in economic things, have automatic checks where if I discriminate against gays or trans or whatever, if I discriminate against them, then there is a system which says, okay, you can discriminate all you want, whether it's religious or just because or for personal reasons, but now the system is set up so that if I do that and these people say, whoa, 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 he discriminated against us, all of a sudden I'm going to lose a bunch of business just because I said no to them. So it's that balance of whether I want to stand up for my values or make more money. And that's, I think, the choice is up to the business owner at that point.
Yeah, there's just natural things that like naturally have consequences that the government doesn't need to get involved in. LGBTQ people have the same rights as everyone else. There's no, if you ask me, there's no real discrimination against them, but people are finding discrimination where it doesn't exist. Yeah, for another good example, going on faith is with transgender people. If this bill were to be passed in many Christian churches across the nation, it is marriages between a man and a woman. So individuals who feel like they are aligning with LGBTQ beliefs, they go into their bishops or they go into whoever and they tell them, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Oh, I need guidance. What should I do? How should I pray? Stuff like that. If a bishop in any church or anything, it doesn't matter what religion it is, or any kind of religious authority were to say, you need to go pray or you need to go do this because it's not okay to be from a Christian point of view, marriage is between a man and a woman. So you can be gay, but you can't get married.
Right.
Because
in a Christian religious view, generally, how I kind of view it as being gay is the same thing as having an inclination towards alcohol or something. Just because you have that inclination does not mean you need or should act on it.
Exactly, yeah. Everyone's born into life with trials that they have to go through, and I identify LGBTQ as a trial that is specific to some people. And when you have, if we're going to the churches saying, this bill will make it so that way if a bishop were to advise someone and say, well, it's obviously an offense in the sight of God for someone to get married and be gay because marriage is between a man and a woman. So you need to pray to God and see how he feels, have a conversation there and talk to God, and, pray, make a decision with the help of God. That statement right there for a bishop to make would hold legal action against not only him, but against his church in terms of gender discrimination, for whatever gender identity, sexual orientation, stuff like that. It will hold legal consequences against that bishop for expressing views of not only himself but of the church, of the Bible, and of God. And that is a violation of the freedom of religion.
Yeah, this bill would, as one of my professors said recently when I talked to him about it, he said, and he's pretty right on this, he said it would make the Bible hate speech, because this Equality Act, says that basically anything that is designed to discriminate against people based on sexual orientation, gender identity, all that various other lingo that they use, would be able to be held legally liable. And what does the Bible say? The Bible says marriage is between a man and a woman. And it's not just the Bible. There are a bunch of other religious texts out there that would be considered hate speech immediately if this bill were to pass. And it's kind of terrifying because no one's looking at this and saying, oh yeah, if we pass this, it's a restriction on the First Amendment, right? The first one, the first that we ever put in the Constitution. No one's realizing that.
Yep. Another important thing for anyone in this chat who is really, I guess, is able with research that they've done, and they are, I guess, really just intelligent is what I'm trying to say there. If you look at this bill and you scroll through it, it's 5 pages long, which is insanely short for a bill in the United States government. Not to mention,
At least not 1,000.
yeah, but it's insanely short, which most people you would think that's a good thing. But it is shockingly so short for a bill of such magnitude. And if you scroll through it, you're going to see a lot of generalizations made in this bill, things that make you raise your eyebrows and wonder what's going on here. For instance, there is no specific mention of people who are not, or who are allowed, who are exempt from gender discrimination. For instance, a football team cannot, it's not saying like a football team can't have a gay guy in it, or a bishop can't advise his congregation. Nothing like that. What it actually does is it leaves the government complete 100% power to determine what discrimination is, where it happens, how it happens, and the consequences of such. That is
terrifying.
That is horrifying. And that's as terrifying as the COVID relief bill, which is literally not actually a COVID relief bill. It's just a whole bunch of crap that's wrapped up inside of a fake bill with a cover on it. Anyone that doesn't believe me, do your research. But that's exactly what this bill. It is a bunch of stuff. This is literally just handing power over to the government and saying, you guys can just control whatever. And this bill... Go ahead, Spencer.
I just said, please take our freedoms.
Yeah, exactly. Please take our freedoms. And you know what? Before I go into some more of the consequences of this bill, we'll go real quick and we'll listen to another message real quick here.
Additionally, and I was talking to a trans individual on one of my shows about this, and I'm going to have him on again. To experience discrimination in America is to just kind of be an American. And that sounds really bad, but we're living in a society where Coca-Cola literally told its employees to be less white, right? We're living in a society where New York City schools are trying to introduce the whiteness chart. And then how to dismantle whiteness. Like, if a Caucasian person released something that said how to dismantle blackness, it would be super racist and all over the place. So my whole thing to people is this, everyone is facing right now, I think, discrimination from some side or another, and that's really sad, but it's also very true. So it's almost like you're no longer special. Everyone's being hated right now. But that's just me.
Well, yeah,
that's actually...
you make some good points there. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But in America, things, the discrimination such as hate speech. Hate speech has consequences. You can actually be held liable legally. I think it's civilly liable for that. There are legal consequences that can come from hate speech. Other things, something saying is you're an idiot or crap like that, or insulting someone's intelligence, or in things like that. Those are things that are part of being an adult, a human adult. You have to be able to accept that there are just some people who aren't going to like you, and there are just some people who may or may not be jerks or just have a poor opinion of you. In America, it is defended that people are allowed to have what opinions they want, and they are allowed to say, I think that, my boss is an absolute idiot and he ain't worth a bag of rocks. But you know what? saying that to his face could have consequences that could lead you to get fired, and that is totally okay. This bill changes it so that way people can no longer not only have those beliefs, but they especially cannot be outspoken about it. So you will not see anybody that will be able to say, get on stereo here and have a religious conversation about marriage between a man and woman, because that will be gender discrimination, and those people could be held liable for that. That won't happen anymore because that'll be illegal. That is a violation of not only a freedom of religion, but it's a violation of freedom of the press, a violation of freedom of speech. It's a violation of the United States for that to happen. For this bill to go through violates everything that this country stands for on a fundamental level.
And, what you were just talking about, maybe we should change our show name to Grow Up America, because people are so sensitive that they can't take not even real discrimination, right? If I just say that, I don't support gay marriage, then a lot of people freak out about it and think that I hate gay people. I don't. I have several gay people that I know and that I'm friendly with and that I talk with. I have a gay cousin. You brought up a really good point, is that to be in America is to be in a place where you are possibly going to get discriminated against and possibly going to get your feelings hurt and you're going to get offended. But that is the price that we pay, right? That small amount of getting your feelings hurt and that small amount of not getting what you think you deserve is a much smaller price to pay for our freedom of speech and our freedom of press and our freedom of religion versus other countries where they don't have that, and their freedom of speech is so limited that people get jailed for spouting what they say is hate speech. And personally, I'm of the belief, like Steven Crowder, that there is no such thing as hate speech. There is free speech, and then there are things that are a violation of free speech. But I don't think that if I say that I disagree with gay marriage, I don't think that is hate speech. I think
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that even if I said that now obviously I don't, okay? But if I said that I hate gay people, I still don't think that is hate speech as our culture thinks of it. I think that it is hateful speech. It is not something that I should just be going about saying and believing that I hate people because of what they are. That would be the same as saying I hate Christians. And I don't believe in doing that sort of thing, hating someone just for being of a certain lifestyle or a certain way of thinking. But our First Amendment allows us to have the maximized freedom, even with the consequences of maybe offending someone or of telling someone something that they don't like to hear. So I think that this bill, like Colson was talking about, really goes against everything that our country stands for in terms of making sure that there are equal rights and an equal playing field. And it's sad sometimes to look at all these things. The fact that this has been pushed and allowed to go through to the level that it's at is insane. That we are at a point where this is something that would even be considered in our government.
Yep, absolutely. Take another message here.
I guess the question isn't whether it's weird or not, but whether it's legal or not when it comes to where gays can be, or what you were talking about with the locker room.
Yeah, the football locker room. People look at that and they're like, "Oh, well, that's gender discrimination. We need to have legal protections for that." And I look at that, I'm like, that's just dumb. I mean, seriously, come on. That's a room full of guys. They don't want a dude in there that's, gay and likes other guys, that's in there that's doing changing and showering with them. I mean, that's just weird as heck. And people look at that and they go, "Oh, no, 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 no. That's gender discrimination to have him in there." I'm like, no, it's not. It's not discrimination. That's just weird.
The way I look at it is that the government should you can go back to, I think, our last show where we were talking about government involvement. And my thinking is that the government shouldn't be involved in private business the absolute least necessary. And so, in that way of thinking, I do not agree with the government saying to right, a private gym or any place that has those locker rooms, that has bathrooms. By the way, most businesses have a bathroom, and most businesses are private. Um, and going to those and saying, listen, we don't care what you think, whether you're a religious leader, right? Whether you're Chick-fil-A or whether you're just Walmart. You have to do what we say you have to do with when it comes to transgenderism and gender identity and all this stuff. And I think that is a terrible involvement from the government and a way of overstepping the ability of the store owner to do what they see fit. And if they lose money over it, then they will lose money over it. But it should not be something that the government should regulate.
Absolutely, I completely agree.
And I don't know what you guys practice as far as politics, but I try to practice like libertarianism. And I always tell people the first time when I got married, I went to a wedding cake maker who literally told me and my wife, "I will not make you a cake. I don't bake cakes for interracial couples." We were like, "Okay, cool." And we found another person who would make the cake. It's like, I didn't sue, I didn't throw a fit. I'm like, it's your fucking business. I think you're an asshole, but that's your right as an American to be a fucking asshole. So I'm going to take my business somewhere else. Like, it's just that easy. And I think that people have forgotten that we don't need to cater to your feelings in society, but individuals will cater to your feelings for you. So, if someone doesn't want to bake you a cake because you're trans, well, somebody else will bake you a cake because they don't give a fuck.
Absolutely. Perfect point there. That legal action against whoever that was, I can't remember where it was either. The guy, the trans couple, or no, was it lesbian? I think it was, maybe gay. And they asked for a cake, and he was like, "I don't bake cakes for LGBTQ or whatever it was." And they're like, "Okay, well, we're gonna sue you." And then I think they're winning. Last I heard. I haven't heard anything about it for a while. That's dumb. Yeah. Yeah, you make a perfect point there. People should not have to cater to an individual's feelings on the society level. If you're gay and you want people catering to your feelings, go join a gay group and have other gay people cater to your feelings. But society as a whole should not have to give a crap about what your opinions are. I do not expect society as a whole to give a crap about whether or not I am conservative or liberal, or whether I am Christian or an atheist. Society doesn't have to care about that. Society just works. People can care about that on an individual basis.
Yeah, and I think that the situation you brought up, by the way, we do appreciate keeping comments clean just so we can reach a wider audience. But you brought up your example, which is very similar to that one. Someone said, "No, I'm not going to bake a cake for an interracial couple," which, I personally don't believe in, but if it's what that person believes, and I think you did a good thing. You went off and you found someone who would, and you supported that business. And so the person who said no to you, they lost business because of it. And you could have gone out and said, post a review. This person wouldn't serve me because we're an interracial couple, and that would have been within your right because that is under the First Amendment. But yeah, you did exactly what we were talking about. You just went out and you picked someone else, and you
just grew up.
Yeah, you didn't freak out about it, and you didn't try to force the guy to make a cake for you. You just took your business somewhere else, and you voted with your dollar that you're not going to support that person.
Yep, absolutely.
So on hate speech, there's a very good poem by a famous post-World War II author, German poet. I think his name was Martin Niemöller. But the poem is called "First They Came." You can just look it up. It should come right up. Very significant. And I tell people this about speech all the time. I don't want to give you guys the whole poem because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But look it up if you're while you're doing this podcast. If you want, you'll find it's very deep and applies to a lot of what's going on right now.
Oh, yes. I'm absolutely seeing that.
Have you read it? Because I haven't.
I'm looking at it right now. I just looked it up.
Right. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. That's actually, I'd forgotten about that poem, but that is a really good point, is that they're going to come for everyone. And if you don't support people that believe, a little differently than you, then you're going to be out of luck when they come for you.
Yeah, and I can see people looking at this and go, okay, well, let's use this against, like me and Spencer here, and say, okay, well, you saying that we shouldn't have the equality bill because, LGBTQ people don't have rights. I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, that's not true. I'm not going to say that I hate LGBTQ people. I don't support them a bunch, but if someone were to come after them, in a term of a violent kind of thing like they were proposing here with, or like they're talking about here, in this poem, because it was World War II and the Holocaust and everything, then that would be like, okay, well, you can't just assault LGBTQ people or hurt them just because they're LGBTQ. You cannot hurt someone for their beliefs unless their beliefs turn into actions and take away the rights of other people, such as members of the KKK. They believed in white superiority and they committed murder. Same thing with the Black Panthers. You have that happening all over the globe in hundreds of different situations. People who have an opinion and they feel like they need to express their opinion, and so the result of which is they take away the life, liberty, and happiness from another person. I believe that to be absolutely not okay. Absolutely, not okay, not at all. But and for the Equality Act, I feel like it's a little different. It's not as serious, obviously. It's not like life or death. It's just a path to the worst. It's one of those things where it's like a slippery slope. We're already on the slippery slope. We've been on the slippery slope since people started catering to the LGBTQ demands for things like don't have transphobia, don't have, put pronouns in your bio, crap like that. We started on the slippery slope already because we're just giving in to little things. These are acts of appeasement by doing that, even if people believe otherwise, or saying something and then caving in afterwards and apologizing for it. And these are things that we've already started on the slippery slope. I view the Equality Act as the last push, and we're on a sled that is on a hill full of solid ice. The Equality Act pushes us over the edge and heads us uncontrollably down to a giant spike at the bottom.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, we cut off this earlier and I didn't say this. The Equality Act has, one sec, let me get this link up right here so I can look it. Oh, here it is. Okay. The Equality Act has already been stated by a couple different people. I do not have their names at the moment. And there are various people that I think one of them was, a couple of them were representatives, a couple of them were just other random people, a couple of radical citizens, stuff like that. But a chunk of people have said that they plan on using the passing of the Equality Act to bring further bills into place. This group of people that I'm talking about has specifically said that we need puberty blocking drugs that will be mandatory required for all children across the United States of America. Puberty blocking drugs at the age of 9. Cross-sex hormones can be administered at the age of 14. That's optional. And surgery by the age of 18 or younger, and that is optional. But the puberty blocking drugs will be mandatory. That is something that this bill sets a precedent for, that you cannot speak out against that because it'll be gender discrimination. I want people to listen to this right now and look at the massive issue that this is. Okay, when the reason that this is different for things like racial discrimination is because racial discrimination, first off, you shouldn't discriminate people on matters of race. You shouldn't discriminate people on matters of belief, for things like discriminate for like their, whether LGBTQ. But like that cake baker that didn't want to bake someone because they were transgender, that's their belief. They can do that. That's America. That person that didn't want to bake you a cake because of you and your wife were interracial, that's not okay, but that's their belief. They can do that. This is America, and the people look at this bill takes the whole people can do this because that people can have that opinion because that's America, and then there's like natural consequences. Like for you, I'm sorry, I'm totally forgetting your name right now. 1 second, I gotta find this in my notes. Okay, real talk day, real talk all day. Sorry, my bad. When for you just decided to be a mature person and you took your business somewhere else, you got your cake and you were fine. You didn't go out and cry like a baby and sue that person, call it gender discrimination, and start up a big hoo-ha that is now known nationwide because this one guy decided not to bake a cake for an LGBTQ couple. What the heck? Where did America is the greatest country in the world. We've talked about this before. I'll talk about it and say it again until I'm blue in the face. We have rights that no other country in the world does, and the world has revered America as the shining example on the hill for quite a while. I mean, we were shining example on the hill before World War II when we became the world's sole superpower. Or I guess actually China's becoming a superpower now too. So, but
we're
we have
definitely the most powerful nation at this point. And just a real quick point. If we're the most powerful nation, which we obviously are, we police the world basically. We're not an empire if we haven't taken over the world with our such a great, powerful military. Okay, that was just a side note, but we can talk about that in another episode.
Yep, we can bring that up later. But no, things like gender and discrimination. I would say, this is just a made-up statistic, like one of those spitballing things. I'm gonna say 90%, 80%, 70%. I don't know. A majority, the high majority of instances that LGBTQ people or activists identify as instances of gender discrimination, if you ask me, are just someone that got butthurt and cannot, be mature enough to realize that their feelings are not should not be the sole concern of society.
Right.
That's all I really have to say about that. That's the simplest way to say that.
Yeah, in America, we protect your rights. We don't protect your feelings. And the reason we do that is because rights are inherent and they are the same for every single person. Coulson and me and every person watching this and every person in the world has inherent rights that are identical, right? We have the right to free speech, the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We all have those exact same rights that do not change from person to person. Whereas feelings do change from person to person, right? Coulson may feel differently about a situation than I would, or to anyone that's listening. And that's why we don't. That's why we don't use feelings as our basis in America, is because they change so much and they are so different from person to person that there's no way to quantify them, and there's no way to make reality align with every single person's feeling. That's where you get the "this is my truth" from people. Is it's not your truth. There is the truth, and then there is your opinion, or maybe the way that you view the world. But there is an absolute truth that goes throughout every single person in all of time that you can't change. And this Equality Act kind of goes against a lot of that. And part of that is, we brought it up a little bit earlier, but this Equality Act really, really harms women. If this Equality Act gets passed, which let's hope it doesn't, but if it does, it would essentially mean the end to women's only spaces, whether that's the most obvious and well-known example is sports with what Colson was talking about earlier with the transgender athletes. But this Equality Act would mean the end to women's everything. Any type of thing that is meant for only women would then allow men who, especially in physical competitions, would outpace the women, right? There are a lot of things that women do a lot better than men, and there are some things that men do a lot better than women. And in those areas, the reason we have women's sports is so that the women are able to have a way to play fairly. Because
Equally.
if they went, if they went up against if you pitched the most professional men's basketball team versus the most professional women's basketball team, the best in the nation, the chances are that the men are going to win just because they are naturally taller, they're naturally stronger. And the reason that we have women's sport is so that women can still have those opportunities and still play those sports without feeling like they constantly are being put down by all these people around them.
Yeah, absolutely. By having this bill will just turn anything that is gender specific. And that can go into downright everything. I mean, that can go into the way that clothes are organized in J.C. Penney's or any store across America. That can go into really just anything. I mean, think about in the thing it says right here. It says this bill expands the definition of public accommodations in reference to gender discrimination and sexual orientation, gender identity, crap like that. This bill expands the definition of public accommodations to include places of establishment that provide 1, exhibitations, recreation, exercise, amusement, gatherings, or displays. 2, goods, services, or programs. And 3, transportation services. So that just listed like every business in America was just listed right there. And they're saying that gender discrimination will be this bill will define gender discrimination and set forth consequences very, very generally. Like I already said, it's at the government's discretion what is gender discrimination and where it can take place, crap like that. And it sets that across all of America with no provisos whatsoever. There is not a single thing in this bill that limits it. I've read through the whole thing. There's nothing in the bill that limits it in any way. It gives it unilateral power to do whatever they want, to have with gender discrimination wherever they want. Unilateral power. That is horrible. Wait. I found another example. This one is a little more sad. In West Virginia, there was an elementary school that does not have transgender bathrooms. It has men and women's bathrooms, but it does. West Virginia is subject to the same kind of laws, like I said earlier with the women's sports. California and West Virginia have laws similar to this gender discrimination, to this Equality Act. In West Virginia, there was a elementary school where a 9-year-old girl was assaulted in the bathroom by a boy. It was a student, so he was 5th grade or younger, and didn't say his age. And she was assaulted by him in the bathroom because he claimed that he was transgender, so he was allowed inside the women's bathroom. The consequences of this are none. Absolutely none, because to give consequences would be discriminatory on basis of gender, which I don't understand, because like 2 years ago, the Me Too movement and any kind of assault was like demonized across the nation for anything. But nowadays we're just turning a blind eye to it. Don't really know what kind of happened there. But anywho, 9-year-old girl assaulted by a boy that would identify as transgender. The consequences of which the parents of the boy defended him, said that he was within his rights to first be in the bathroom and that the girl wasn't really harmed in any way, even though she was completely traumatized. The
Right.
girl's parents were obviously...
That
Yeah,
psychological can extend for years and perhaps her whole life.
yeah, and the parents of the girl, they were obviously infuriated and enraged, and so they took the matter. Well, actually, no, it didn't happen. Like, it wasn't like it took later. It was immediately they took the matter to the school board, and then the parents still defended the boy for his actions.
Wow.
And the school board dismissed the case, saying that it was to go against it was transphobic. So they defended the boy's actions. They took it to, I think it was the city and then the county courts. Sorry, it was county courts. Yeah, they took it to local courts, and then it was turned down there. So they brought it to the state Supreme Court, West Virginia State Supreme Court, and they were essentially just told, don't even take this to the Supreme Court because this is we don't care about this. Just go away. It's not worth our time taking care of this. If you ask me, first off, that this happened in the first place is horrible. That is an absolute, just absolutely not okay. First off, that this happened at all, what the person identified as. Second off, the boy identified as transgender and was defended because it was a matter of gender discrimination. Anyone who has an ounce of intelligence in this chat room, in this room right now, can clearly see that that is not okay, and that this bill sets forth precedences to defend anybody in this entire country who were to identify as LGBTQ, and anything against them is transphobic, or it's gender discrimination. Make a good analogy here. Harvey Weinstein, obviously he's done some really bad stuff, right? We've seen the stuff that he's done, the acts that he's committed, bad stuff, right? To put this in perspective, if Harvey Weinstein were to claim that he is transgender, before, obviously it's too late now, but if he were to have claimed that he was transgender and this bill were to be in effect, he would have been defended because actions against him would have been gender discrimination. I want everyone to think about that for a second. Maybe that's a little too extreme of an example for some people, but this bill has no checks and balances. It has unilateral power across the board, all over the entire country, both in social and economical situations, and it sets forth, but you can't even really call them civil rights because these people already have the same civil rights as everyone else. This actually creates a very, very small minority and gives them insane power across the entire country. So if you ask me, there is not a single word in this bill that not only is not true, but it is a violation in the sight of God and in the sight of everything that this country stands for.
Yeah, this bill just has so much crap in it that the way that politicians do this is they use so many euphemisms and so much nice language, right? It's going to be the Equality Act, and it's going to give rights to more people, but if you really read into it and you look at the consequences of it, then it's just not a good bill, and there are so many things wrong with it. We'll go ahead and take this message, and then we can keep going.
Good morning. I just want to say that just have a beautiful day, a wonderful day. Just think about yourself today a little bit and go over the stuff that you like. Have a great day and just be mellow and enjoy life because we're having tough times and sooner ones will be coming. Better times will be coming soon. That's what I meant to say. I'm so sorry. But just enjoy life. Live the fullest. I know it's hard nowadays, but just remember, enjoy life. Stay mellow and have a wonderful, great day. Bye!
So, I personally am enjoying my life by doing this podcast and getting our thoughts out. And I think that better times will come if we still stay strong and we push for what's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe in yielding to beliefs. And like Spencer said, this podcast, I absolutely love doing this. I love everybody that's tuning in here today. Thank you guys for being in here. Just a shout out to all of you. Me and Spencer, we started a live podcast format for a reason instead of starting everything else. There's a lot of different ways you can do podcasts. You can do video talk shows, which we might be doing it in the future. No promises yet. But we did live podcasts because we enjoy being able to talk to people, and enjoy being able to hear people's comments, what you guys are thinking, and have an open debate. That's why we have the hashtag open talk on every one of our shows. We enjoy every comment that you guys leave. It helps towards our show. It helps towards a good conversation. And we started this show because we wanted to do more than just sit on the sidelines and watch as the world changed while we had our opinions, and we're just one person with no influence, really. I mean, yes, every vote in the United States and every person matters, but on a microscopic scale, one person's vote doesn't make a difference one way or another. It's a lot of people's votes that make, or a lot of people's opinions that make a difference one way or another. And so this is what this show is about. We're here to, give our opinions, hear what you guys have to say, change my mind kind of stuff. If you guys have stuff that makes sense to us, then yeah, we're absolutely open to listen to it. Keep it clean, keep it real. Be smart about what you're saying. I'm definitely open to everything.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, share this with people so that we can hear their opinions too. The more people we get from across the political spectrum, the more that we're able to talk and discuss about various topics and hear all the views on certain issues.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, there's just, in the terms of politics, wherever opinion you have, there's a lot of stuff. Today we're specifically focusing on the Equality Act that kind of translates to LGBTQ rights. Let's go to LGBTQ rights for a little bit here, Spencer, and talk about that, and we can tie this back into the
Sure.
Equality Act whenever we're going to wrap up today. Me and Spencer, right off the bat, I wouldn't say we're supporters, but we're not against LGBTQ rights. We're not pro-gay, but we're not anti-gay either. There's a middle area there that people are allowed to have.
We support them as people.
Yes, exactly. We support them as people, but we don't believe in what they believe. People seem to look at that and they go, "What? How can you? That's being a hater," or crap like that.
Right. They conflate it for whatever reason in today's culture. People conflate not agreeing with a lifestyle as not liking and hating the person who lives that lifestyle.
Absolutely. There are instances, with LGBTQ rights, the Civil Rights Act set forth a lot of protections for LGBTQ community. Further things that protected, things like the ability to get married, the ability for them to achieve insurance, same housing, or able to get housing or same housing, whatever. Stuff like that. Those are good things. Those are good things that help those people, right? Because we support them as people. And I have to say that the difference between those acts, which I would deem as more essential, versus the modern LGBTQ community, is that the modern LGBTQ community, modern LGBTQ movement, does not work for civil rights. They work for civil opinions.
Yeah. Great way of putting
it. You got crap like if you don't support LGBTQ, then you are transphobic, right? So if I'm a Christian and I believe marriage is between a man and woman, I'm transphobic. I'm a hater. I'm a bigot. I shouldn't believe that. That's not okay. Crap like that. You need to make sure you put your pronouns in your bio, because if you don't, then you're being discriminatory. If I don't let transgender people into the same bathroom as me or same locker room, for heaven's sakes, I'm being a hater. I'm being phobic in one way or another. So the modern LGBTQ community does not even closely resemble anything compared to the LGBTQ community that achieved the civil rights that they have achieved throughout the decades, following up from the civil rights bills. Yeah, I mean, that's basically all there's to say about it. They're different now because they don't work for the same things. They already have the same rights as everyone else, and now they're just looking for needless recognition.
Right, and it's like I talked about on one of our past episodes, when people don't have a real fight to fight, right? If we're not fighting a world war, or there are not huge problems that need to be fixed, which I think at this point in America, all of the absolute biggest problems have been solved. Right? We have the Constitution, which 100, 200 years ago solved a lot of those problems. And now people are just looking for a purpose in life, and one of the purposes they find is to push for what they think is more LGBTQ, AIP, and silent number 2 rights. Whereas we just don't see it as that. We see that they have gotten to a place where they are equal with every other American under the law. They were already like that for a long while, and there's nothing that really needs to be changed, because everything that they want to change at this point is a violation of someone else's rights in order to give these trans or whatever people privileges. They're trying to take away rights of people to give them privilege, and that's not how we operate in America.
Absolutely not. No, that's totally true. I mean, there are congruencies that can be drawn, similarities that can be drawn with things like the Black Lives Matter movement, in terms of the organization itself and what it actually accomplished or represented. The Black Lives Matter movement. Let's just go in just real quick. The Black Lives Matter movement really didn't focus a lot. People say that it would focus specifically on protecting Black people and racial, not racial, police brutality and crap like that. And that's actually not true. I have every single picture from their what we stand for, their mission thing that they took down from the website, that described how their goal is to dismantle the nuclear family. It's to be a proponent for LGBTQ rights. And so they really weren't just focusing on one thing. And the similarity with that between with the LGBTQ community is that obviously they're no longer working for equality under the law because they have that, but they keep saying that and they keep pushing that narrative. And so people look at that and they go, oh, well, I didn't know that these people didn't have the same rights as me or equality to me. So I need to help them, right? Because I'm an American citizen and I believe in everyone having equal rights. So people get dragged into the LGBTQ movement with the belief that people are unequal, and they don't really realize that that's not true. LGBTQ individuals have the exact same rights as everyone else. The difference is that LGBTQ, the America as a whole is a largely religious nation. With Christianity being probably with Christianity being the biggest. I mean, but we have Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, whatever you want, whatever Jews, and whatever religion there is, it's probably here at least one, or at least with somebody in this country. So the U.S. is a largely religious nation that has traditionally had a large emphasis on religious freedom and freedom of speech, freedom of the press, stuff like that. And the LGBTQ community, I would say they probably feel kind of targeted because they have the same rights, but the difference is that a lot of these religions do not believe in LGBTQ, right? Because you have many of them believing something similar that may just sound different, where marriage is between a man and a woman. Some of them believe much more violently, like some religions in Egypt actually believed that people who were LGBTQ did not have any human rights at all, and they would commonly. I mean, it wasn't in ancient times. I mean, it was happening in like the 1900s, but I guess starting 20th century. they were like dragging people up to the sides of cliffs and throwing them off the cliff and killing them because they were LGBTQ.
And
So
that's actually a good point, is that still happens today, especially in Middle Eastern Muslim countries, where I believe it's Sharia law says to kill gay people. And so if gay people in America want to fight for the rights of gay people, they should fight for the rights of people that are getting murdered, right? They are getting murdered in
yeah, not someone that got the
yeah.
Yeah, not someone that got called the wrong pronouns. You know, whether they say their pronouns are they, them, or whatever, and they got called he, her. You know, whatever their pronouns may be. But they shouldn't be creating things like the Equality Act bill, the Equality Act. I mean, that's just dumb, and they shouldn't be pushing things like pronouns or being transphobic if you don't support us, crap like that. You want to fight for LGBTQ rights? Well, your movement needs to be taken to an international scale, because America is already completely equal with LGBTQ individuals under the law. Anyone who doesn't believe me, I would like you to cite me one instance where there is laws in this country that have specific prejudice against LGBTQ people. I mean, like, seriously, like segregation kind of crap. I'm not talking like I need it to not like it's implied or it's loose and so people do it. No, because America as a whole stands for being loose in terms of law, and then letting the society and individuals choose how to govern themselves with the government just setting forth. Yeah, with the government just setting forth human rights. So if anyone can cite me one instance in this country that laws are specifically prejudiced against LGBTQ people, we can have a different kind of discussion. When you do give me that, I will gladly be open to hearing that. But I don't think anyone can find me that, because I don't believe that it exists.
Yeah, and it's like the analogy. You know, if you have a beam in your own eye, get it out before you can criticize someone for having just a speck in theirs. So take care. In one of the ways I view that is take care of the big problems first. And one of the big problems is gay people getting killed and murdered. I'd say that's a much bigger problem than getting called the wrong gender or whatever your small case may be. Fight for the people who are actually having their rights violated and not just their privileges or their conveniences.
Yeah, absolutely. Get another comment here.
Hey, what's up, Colson? Spencer, great conversation. I really love everything that you guys are saying. A gay Republican here. I am a gay, Hispanic, millennial, son of an illegal immigrant, and a proud conservative that supported Donald Trump twice. In regards to the Equality Act, this bill has a number of really alarming concerns. It guts women's rights and equality. It politicizes the medical community. It's radically pro-abortion. It's hostile to people of faith and could ultimately erode parental rights. The bigger challenge with this bill is that it has the potential to lead to highly inappropriate sexual education and history lessons being taught in schools. The list goes on, but this is not good for America or even for the LGBT community.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Spencer. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and honestly, it is so awesome to have someone who, first of all, that is quite the resume of things the left would say that you would absolutely have to be liberal and have to be on the left. And I'm glad that you are standing for what you believe in and are conservative and did vote for President Trump. And it's great to hear that from someone who is gay and still has that reasonable perspective to say, wait, this bill is not good and it's not going to further the rights, like you said, of even LGBTQ people. So yeah, you brought up a lot of great points.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Spencer said, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're able to come on the show and be able to give us your 2 cents. Yeah, and I'm glad that you're able to listen and see that me and Spencer, because we get flack sometimes for people saying, oh, well, you're just you're transphobic, or you hate gay people, crap like that. I'm glad that you are, as a Republican and as a conservative, that you're able to maintain your beliefs and be able to realize that there are things in this country that not only don't help you but don't help the country as a whole. So thank you so much. We completely agree. This bill totally violates everything that America stands for. I mean, it violates the family by taking away the rights of the parents. It's going to create, it's going to be redoing the history books. It's going to be changing education to protect, to teach children one way or another, and literally just brainwash them. I mean, people say that changing education is just being more socially accepting of things like in Los Angeles, they're proposing. I mean, first off, they're doing this during COVID. We're the whole country is tight on money, and they're going to be spending, I think it was like $3 million to rebrand all the schools in Los Angeles away from the names of the founding fathers, because the founding fathers were racist.
Wow.
I know, isn't that dumb? But no, that's good. That's just a good example. No, why people spend, they're brainwashing, they're taking away. That's what brainwashing is to remove information and to convince people of other stuff, which may or may not be, which actually so not true. And I can't think of any instance in brainwashing where they taught someone something that was true, because brainwashing is used in malicious ways. To change education and change the way that the country works on a fundamental scale by going after the rights of the parents to nurture their children and to educate them, and the rights of children to make their own choices. That is a fundamental violation of. It's a fundamental violation of religion. It's a fundamental violation of the country. It's a violation of every single American, and everyone should be up in arms and infuriated by this bill. And I don't understand. I honestly, sometimes I just have a hard time understanding how people support things, because I look at this, and I mean, I have only spent like probably 2 or 3 hours looking into this. Not even that much time, right? Like, anyone can just do that listening to like a YouTube video in the background or crap like that. I've not spent that a great deal of time, and I've dug up a lot of stuff in order to make this episode today. And I can see that there are horrible consequences from this bill.
Yeah, and not even digging it up. It was right there on the surface, and all you have to do is just read it. And I think a lot of this is they're relying on people to not read it, to not do their due diligence and look at what this bill is actually proposing.
Yeah, I've read articles from every major news organization, CNN, Fox News, Washington Post, New York Times, all these different places. I've read articles from all of them, but they aren't putting them in their mainstream information, and so therefore they are, in my opinion, censoring the information by keeping it out of the eyes of the public, but making it so that they can't be held liable for not just reporting on it at all, because they're just doing a good job of hiding it. And by hiding it, they don't inform people of the consequences of it. And some of these reports, these news articles, are actually very much so biased. A lot of the ones that are biased are substantially shorter and include no references or anything. I think I saw one of them that actually cited an anonymous source, which, if I don't know how you can have an anonymous source that talks about a bill that's laid out on Congress.gov. Pretty simple, but whatever, teach their own, I guess. Yeah, so there's a lot that we should consider for this. There's a lot of information to be digested about this bill, but the bottom line is, and anyone can tell us after about 10 minutes of research and an intelligent mind, that just doesn't do any favors for the country. It doesn't do any favors for anyone. It doesn't help LGBTQ people. It doesn't help women, doesn't help men, doesn't help nobody, doesn't help anybody at all, and it violates the country. That's all I got to say about that.
Not only does it not help people, it seriously harms a lot of other people. children especially, right? We were talking earlier about the stat that I think you said 94% of all children that have gender dysphoria grow out of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. So you take that 94%, and so you have 6% that are still that still believe that they're the different gender, right? And that group has a 43% suicide rate. I believe that's the exact percentage. You guys can look it up to make sure I'm doing it right. And so you have a 6% chance of your kid getting into a almost 50% suicide rate. Or what this bill would do is it would make it nigh to impossible for a parent to deny their kid getting puberty blockers or sex hormone treatment or gender surgery. And I believe specifically with the gender surgery, if a child gets that surgery, there's a 0% likelihood that they will change back to their original gender. And so when I look at it, I see a 6%.
But it has the same suicide rate.
Right. It has the exact same suicide rate. It does not change. And when I look at that, and if I were a parent, I would see that and say, okay, I have a 6% chance that my child, first I have a 63% chance that they even have it. Then it's cut down to 6%. So I have a microscopic chance that my child could commit suicide. Or if I let them go through with this, it is now a 100% chance that they get into that group that has that 43% chance of suicide, which if I look at that, I'm not going to want my kid to be into that group because I want my kid to survive and be happy. And yeah, and so that's just something that this bill is going to allow, is it's not going to let parents make those decisions for their kids. And all of a sudden you're going to push a lot more kids towards that group, which has a higher suicide rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points. But even more so than that, that's with today's modern, with the things that people are facing right now in terms of being educated, like being pushed to be LGBTQ, whether it's from the schools or from their peers or whatever. And when you create a law that not only changes, if you create a law like this, when this law were to go through, it would change education, and change the textbooks and how they are, and it would change how children are taught. It would, without a doubt, change the way that children interact with each other. And there would probably be a higher number of individuals who have gender dysphoria, a higher number of individuals who then commit suicide, because in all honesty, LGBTQ is a very hard thing to make through, especially as a child, because I mean, you have people who are starchy against it, and you have people who are starchy for it, and a child can't make sense of a lot of that. They aren't old enough to understand the consequences of their choices yet. And so when you have children who, first off, these statistics that we're giving out, there's no timeline. For instance, like the 63% of children who have gender dysphoria, there's not a timeline that says that, like, oh, and then there's 94% of them change their minds later, and then that 94% happens within like a month or within 3 days, right? Let's say a kid has, they're one of the 64%, right? Or 63%, dang it. 63%, they have gender dysphoria, they decide that they're LGBTQ, whatever age, right? Let's say they're 9 years old, right? This bill sets forth that it has the opposite. Right now, it sets forth that you can't tell children no to being LGBTQ. You can't punish them for that either. Parents could lose their children for that. But it also paves the path for that required puberty blockers. But let's just say, that's an option, right? When you make it so it is totally up to a child who has has nowhere near the amount of knowledge required to make a choice that will affect them for the rest of their life. Because let's face it, puberty blockers is literally just a mind-changing drug that changes the way their body works on a fundamental level. Then you are giving a child, that's just not, that don't make any sense at all. I can go on a rant for hours about this, but in the bottom line, just think about it. It doesn't make sense. The numbers don't add up. The intelligence, the common sense is not there in this bill. It is not present. It doesn't make sense to propose a bill like this because it hurts everybody and helps nobody. I can't even see political gain coming from this bill, honestly. Like, normally I can look at a bill and I can go, oh, well, this will help, like Nancy Pelosi is the one that proposed this. Just I can normally look at a bill and go, oh, this will help her one way or another. I look at this and I go, this doesn't help nobody. This doesn't help her get her political. I mean, this gives power. So I guess that can help. It gives the government the sole discretion on what gender discrimination is. So maybe that's what they're really trying to accomplish with it. But everything else, I mean, it hurts LGBTQ. It hurts men, women, children, families. It hurts everything.
Yeah, and it has nothing good in it. And I don't know how they have been able to get it to this point where it's actually being considered. We have a couple messages, so we'll go ahead and take these. And thanks again for those that are sharing. Make sure to share so that we can get more people adding to our discussion.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell.
Spencer, you have hit the nail on the head. As I look at my life today in America, post 4 years of Donald Trump, I feel safer and more taken care of than I have from any liberal policy. Because what the Democratic Party wants is pandering over policy. They want to wave rainbow flags. They want to mandate pronouns in schools, allow access to bathrooms and locker rooms. But if you look at what the Republican Party under Donald Trump accomplished, they put millions of dollars into HIV research and prevention, afforded PrEP free of charge to the LGBT community who didn't have medical insurance, appointed the first openly LGBT person to their cabinet, and the list goes on and on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, he's got so many. You've got so many good points in just what you're bringing up.
And Spencer, you got an admirer there.
Yeah, that does help. But yeah, I'm really impressed that you're talking so much sense, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we don't want to sound rude, like saying that like gay people can't make sense.
Oh, yeah,
it's just that I'd say the vast majority of your niche is left, and they don't talk a lot of sense. They just regurgitate a lot of nonsense spouted by news, politics, whatever. They follow a very much so mob mentality and don't really find out information for themselves, especially on things like this. I mean, you can look up the Equality Act and you'll see people waving signs around. I mean, like as you would expect, people waving signs around. It says Equality Act, go Equality Act, yada, yada, yada. I guarantee you that almost nobody in that crowd has not only not looked at this website on congress.gov and seen what's actually in this bill, but they haven't looked it up online. They haven't seen the consequences of which. They clearly don't see the reality behind this bill, which is power and inequality.
Yeah. So.
And I wanted to touch more as Spencer was talking about, a lot of Christians in America. Look, Christians don't agree with my lifestyle, and they don't believe that we should have the right to marry. But at the end of the day, it is not the Christian community that is showing up with AR-15s and mowing down gays at nightclubs in Florida. What the conservative movement with their policy has stood for is a very direct rejection of extremist religion that will persecute the LGBT community. I don't care if people agree or disagree with my lifestyle. I care more about and align myself with the political party who was the first to call for the decriminalization of my lifestyle. And that is why I support the conservative movement.
Amen. People look at conservatives and they're like, oh, they're anti-gay, you know, they're haters, yada 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 yada. But if you look at it, it actually almost seems like conservatives are more pro-LGBTQ, supporting the people, than they are the left, which supports the movement. You know, we support the right of people to decide, even though, you know, we say you want to be gay, that is your right. You have that ability to make that choice in your life, and we don't support people who are extremists who would hurt or violate your rights and otherwise. But you have people on the left who, you know, people that would gladly hurt people who are, you know, that don't align with their beliefs or would persecute them in whatever ways possible. And actually, it happens all the dang time, where people on the left decide, you know what, we don't like the way this person's thinking, so we're just gonna, you know, we're gonna make it hard for them to live. We're gonna censor them. We're gonna cancel them. We're gonna, you know, sometimes physically hurt them in terms of like the BLM riots. I mean, a lot of it was just nonsense violence that wasn't actually directed in any direction. But the few instances that was targeted violence, is just an example of like they didn't like what this person believed, and so they went to hurt them. Like that's not okay. That's absolutely not okay.
And that's one of the reasons that I like being conservative more than liberal, is that conservatives support people on a fundamental level as human beings, and so they automatically have that set level of respect for everyone. Whereas I think a lot of the people on the left, especially politicians, say, well, I will respect people based on either their class or whatever group they fit in. And they don't have that base level of respect for everyone like I would say most conservatives do. And so I think that's a big reason is why conservatives are generally not necessarily pro-gay in terms of, you know, we want you to, we want you to have every single thing you want, but they're also not anti-gay. They usually, most conservatives are people who say, okay, you know, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I will protect your right to be able to live how you think will bring you happiness.
Exactly, absolutely. We support people and we support their rights. And I think that the conservative group, and like we talked about this actually yesterday and the day before on our previous two episodes, conservative versus liberal, conservative versus Republican. Conservatives don't support groups nearly as much as the left or any other group in the entire country does. Conservatives support individuals and they support the country, they support this nation, they support what honors this nation and what makes it better, or they support keeping it the exact same as it is. And that's just the simple fact of of conservatives, is that they don't believe in deeming everyone a villain because a group of people committed a bad act. You know, like every single person in the BLM riots was not a bad person. But, you know, for instance, look at the Capitol Hill protest. You have one very, 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 very small group of people compared to the 75 million Trump supporters that the media has vilified that committed violence. That very small group committed violence. And so they reflected that on everybody. Everybody's now violent. Everybody's evil. Everyone's a hater. They're all going to burn your houses down. You got to be afraid for your lives. But the BLM riots that were actually burning people's houses down were peaceful protests. Take from that what you will.
Yeah, and we can play this next message.
And I do want to add one final point here. The problem with the Equality Act and all of this legislation that uses the hyper-generalized term of equality is really focused on one community, and that's the transgender community. As a whole in this country, gays and lesbians are not being highly discriminated against. But the LGBT community and the radical left fully understand that the science on gender is not on their side. So, in order to legislate acceptance of that notion, they have to chunk the rest of the community in there and create this misguided assertion that the entire LGBT community's rights are at stake. And that is fundamentally just not true.
Yeah, I actually.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I think is wrong in terms of the way it's formatted is the title LGBT. I think it should be separate. LGB and T should be separate things, because if you are under the transgender ideology and you say that men can be women and women can be men, then not only do you get rid of the idea of heterosexual marriage, but you get rid of the idea of being homosexual at all. You get rid of the idea that I can be gay because I like other men. If men and women are not fundamentally different, if they are interchangeable, then there goes being gay. You can't be gay in a world where men and women are the exact same.
Yeah, like gay, lesbian, or bi, those are things that are like, that's your preference on who you like, whether if you're gay, you obviously like other guys, if you're lesbian, you like other girls. That's just very simple. But transgender is like, it's different because it doesn't switch your preference, it switches your biological gender and it takes it interchangeably. And like you said, gay Republican, the science is not on their side, because there is such a thing as gender dysphoria, and that's a mental disorder. We talked about that. But there is a scientific, there's like I don't know if it's a disease or just a DNA disorder, that actually makes it so that way people have chromosomes from both sides that makes them biologically both. This is something that the left has used repeatedly, and I've seen it used against me. And they use this example like it's a common thing. But if you look this up online, I don't remember the name of it right now. It is like an exponentially, like 100-fold, impossibility, like 100-fold against chance of getting this thing, or maybe it's probably a lot bigger than that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but this is like such an insanely rare thing that people capitalize on. They say, oh, well, you can be both, you can be both genders at the same time, whether that's biologically or if it's just your matter of preference. If you think that if you're a guy, you got an innie instead of an outie, and that you feel like you want to be a girl, then that is all you. You can go ahead and be that. Just be you. I look at that and I go, no, anatomy doesn't work that way. And then they created, the sex reassignment surgery, and I look at that and I go, that's just, that's dumb. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. You got things like puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. I look at all this crap and I'm just like, this doesn't. Well, first off, this is different than LGB, but also it doesn't make sense that people. Transgender, to me, I can't make sense of transgender, to be honest. I can't make sense of a lot of LGBTQ, if I'm really being honest. And I guess that's just because I'm Christian, I'm conservative, I have different beliefs. But I'm not saying that I don't care about your beliefs, because you are absolutely allowed to have your beliefs. I will defend you as a human and as a member of this country, and being able to have those beliefs the day I die, because I believe in the first and second. Because I believe, yes, I believe in the First and Second Amendment. I believe the right to defend myself and the right to defend the rights of others. And I believe what your rights are, and I know what my rights are. And this Equality Act switches the narrative in favor of the radical left and gives them the ability to unilaterally make choices based on what gender discrimination is, where it takes place, and the consequences and such. If you ask me, that is the fittings of a dictatorship. I would like someone to give me your opinion on what you guys think about that, because I think that the Equality Act is facilitating a dictatorship in sheep's clothing by giving the term that it's for LGBTQ rights, but I don't really see that. I see a dictatorship for it.
Oh, and going to your favorite example, Colson, the Jews, Gina Carano was talking about how the German populace was told that the Jews are terrible, and in a lot of instances, they were told that the Jews are doing XYZ to harm you, right? Whether they were or not, which we know they weren't, but they said that the Jews are doing this to harm you. And by saying that the Jews were doing harm to them, it got them in an uproar against them. And that's a similar way to how this could happen, is that, well, they're doing harm to us, so we need to fight against them. And that was a dictatorship, and this could definitely help lead to a dictatorship.
Absolutely, it puts too much power in the hands of the government. And the worst part is that I like making references to the Holocaust because it's easy for people to understand. I don't like the Holocaust, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's easy for people to understand because it's taught worldwide, right? People learn about this all over the world. I mean, it's different in other places, I would say, than it is America. You have things like, it's changed or edited to fit a narrative, but in America, I would say, you got this protection of education, trying to speak the truth, stuff like that. Anywho, so it's universally recognized across the world. And by it being recognized, people can make easy analogies to it. So, with the Nazi government, they didn't start preaching immediately, kill all the Jews. That's not what they started preaching. First, they started preaching that, why should Germany have to put up with it? Because Germany was oppressed under the Treaty of Versailles after World War One, and they lived in relative poverty, most of the entire nation, between World War One and the start of World War Two. And so Hitler came in. He started preaching this, stuff, saying, "Hey, why should we all have to be, why should we have to be living like this? Why should we have to live in poverty when we're such a great nation? And why we, And then he did all this, and he stirred everyone up to anger. The people that spoke out against him were quickly silenced. Then he, started convincing them that Jews were evil. That led to the Holocaust. The Nazi Party started forming, and pretty soon he had dictatorial, or something like that. I'm not sure how you say that. Power across Germany. Germany is not a bad country. World War II, Germany was not a bad country. A vast majority of the populace of Germany was actually against the actions of the Nazi Party. But you had a group that was given power that convinced everyone else that what they were fighting for was, equality or their rights or crap like that, right? And in the end, you had the Holocaust and World War II happened, and everything we all know to be horrible instances, a very dark period in human history, that were the consequences of such propaganda being spewed. I see this Equality Act and a lot of the stuff that is happening with our current administration. And actually, I guess just a lot of what the left and Democrats work for constantly. I see that as the modern day incarnation of exactly what Hitler was trying to accomplish. I see things that I can easily draw parallels to. You have them constantly preaching a attitude of hate against everyone else. If someone's a different political view than you should hate them. And I guess they even do that to the detriment of things like LGBTQ, because they help to create the narrative that conservatives should hate gay people. They should hate them, or they should be anti-LGBTQ. And you have the conservatives who are like, actually, no, we don't believe that we should hate them. We may not believe what they believe, but as an American, we support their rights. They're stirring everyone up to anger. They're creating contention, and they're creating the perfect circumstances for individuals to lay forth bills like the Equality Act that give the government unilateral power to make choices and imprison people without consequences.
Yeah, I think that's really good points.
Another message here real quick.
I agree with you 100% on that statement, Colson. The Equality Act is a massive bill. Essentially, it would overhaul our federal civil rights framework by making nearly 60 amendments to 10 different civil rights laws and assigning special privileges for sexual orientation and gender identity. For example, Title II of the Civil Rights Act covers public accommodations, which have traditionally been understood to be things like hotels, restaurants, storefronts, and currently race, color, national origin, religion are what's covered. The Equality Act would add sex, including orientation and gender identity, to that list, and then expand the definition of public accommodation to include just about any place that offers a service or program.
Yeah, and that's not okay. I mean, they're opening everything. They're changing the way that America as a whole works. Because okay, for instance, with things like race, actual gender being male or female, and then things like that, belief, whether you're Christian or atheist or whatever it may be, those are things that are protected under the Civil Rights Act. Those are things that are ingrained values into people, that I would say are much more consistent than the flip-flop attitude that you get from people with different gender identities, such as transgender. LGBTQ people have the exact same rights as everyone else for anything in this entire nation. Same rights. The difference is that having things that amend, like you were saying right there, the Civil Rights Act, and amends it with gender identity or sexual preference or sexual orientation rather, then you create the ability for people to flip-flop and say whatever the heck they want, on whatever terms, with no evidence needed, for one way or the other. That gives them the most power of any of the minorities. Okay, what minority can you think of where you are just arbitrarily given the rule of law determined on what your opinion is, right? If I'm a Christian, that does not mean that I have the ability to oppress other people because of my beliefs, or that if I do commit an act of oppression, then I cannot be prosecuted for that because for one reason or another I'm of a certain group and so I can't be touched, like that boy that identified as transgender and so he got away with his assault. Like, what the heck? I do not understand that. That is beyond my understanding as a human being to understand why a group that so avidly supports so many different things, and then a group in the left being so up in arms, especially about things like the Me Too movement, is now supporting a bill that literally facilitates assault, rape, molestation, stuff like that, stuff that is horrible and appalling things. It literally is a bill that will facilitate these things and then violate the rights of parents, the rights of private businesses. It changes America nationwide, undermining everything, and sets the pave work, pushes us over the edge of that, pushes us down the cliff, like I said earlier, for further legislation that would do things like how people are already proposing, that would require all 9-year-olds. Okay, when you turn 9, you could potentially, this bill will lay it so people can propose this legislation, be required to undergo puberty blockers because you're not old enough yet to decide what sex you want to be. So at 9 years old, you're going to be required to take a puberty blocker until you reach whatever the designated age may be, that you're able to decide what you want to do. I'm speechless, honestly. I don't know what to say to these things, other than I completely don't support them, and I think they're retarded. I mean, like, literally, like, people say retarded is a bad word. No, retarded is the word that fits this, because retarded kind of undergoes like what is that? They're like mental disorders or something like that. People who believe in the Equality Act and that it actually helps people, I would consider that to be a mental disorder.
Yeah, and it's just so many of these policies, and especially this one, fall apart with just a little bit of logic and a little bit of common sense if you apply it. And I think a lot of this is that they're counting on people to look at the title it says the Equality Act, and everyone says, well, I'm for equality. Of course I want to have equality, with everyone. So of course I'm going to support that. And they're hoping that most people aren't going to, they hope people aren't going to pay more attention than to the name, which unfortunately is probably true. A lot of people in this country read the headline of the news and they don't read the article, or they read the name of a bill, but they don't know what's actually in it. And it's just amazing how much has been pushed and how much has been changed, especially when it comes to the transgender issue, under the guise of saying, well, this is for everyone's rights and this is normal. This is something completely normal. Whereas if you look at it, it's not normal and it's not something that most people would support.
Yeah, absolutely. But the media and the left is doing a great job of hiding this, putting the tag equality over the top of it, portraying it as an act of like a civil duty. You need to do this to maintain equality for everyone, to maintain civil rights. I look at that and I go, actually, what I see here is a whole bunch of malarkey that is just going to create further oppression in the United States, especially of minorities. It's going to, it's not going to help anybody. I don't see the benefit from this bill. You have 2 comments real quick here, so go ahead and listen to one of those.
And I'm going to tune out, but I thank you guys for some very stimulating conversation and want to leave you with this. The radical left and the LGBT community claims to be the community of tolerance, but that is simply not true. They are a community of tolerating only those that think like them. As a gay Republican, I can tell you that I have been harassed, bullied, and ostracized far more for being a conservative than I ever have for sucking dick. If you look at transgender conservatives like Caitlyn Jenner, nobody cared about the way that she was treated. All lives matter, regardless of political affiliation, but the Democrats don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
They are the group in the thank you so much for listening for so long. They are the group of tolerance, except for people that don't agree with them. And in case people don't know, that's not tolerance. You can
they're tolerant of their beliefs.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. Go ahead.
You're fine. It's just not tolerance when it's something that you believe, because I don't need to have tolerance for someone being a Christian because I'm a Christian. I need to have tolerance for someone who is Buddhist or whatever, because I don't believe in that, but I will be tolerant and not persecute them for believing that.
Yeah, or even people that are starkly against you, right? So the left, the right needs to have tolerance to the left. I would say we do a lot better job of that. There are outliers for sure. The left needs to have tolerance to the right, and they need to have tolerance of each other's beliefs, of the people that fit in those niches. And that's different from the left. The left is not tolerant. That's just a simple fact. They are tolerant of themselves, of everyone that completely agrees with them. Then yeah, go ahead. We're all for you. We are pro you. Go ahead. Go LGBTQ. Oh wait, you're not. You're an LGBTQ and you're conservative. Sorry, nope. You're going to be ostracized. Just like you said, that's exactly how it works, and it's seen all over the place. Anybody who doesn't follow their narrative, even if they believe, like a gay person but they don't follow the narrative that they portray, means that they need to be ostracized. They are no longer equal in their eyes. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. We got another comment here. We're wrapping up here in about 7 or so minutes, guys. Here at about 12 o'clock. So go ahead and throw your final comments here, so we can listen to all you guys.
I know I said one final note, but I do want to say this. It is not about equality. It's about special privilege. If you look at Trump's transgender military policy, it first of all wasn't a ban. It was a ban on people serving who are currently undergoing transitional treatment, whether that's hormone blockers, whether that's surgery, and their claim that the government should pay for that surgery. Okay, it is cosmetic. If I'm overweight, I can't mandate that the government pay for my liposuction. But the other thing is that gender dysphoria is still classified by the APA as a mental illness. And any person diagnosed with a mental illness cannot serve in the armed forces. Whether or not your emotional rhetoric agrees with that doesn't change the fact that what Trump did was the ultimate definition of equality.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very good point. You're there. The Trump's transgender policy, which I mean now is been negated by Biden. Trump didn't say transgenders can't serve. He was just limiting the ramifications because, like you said right there, people who, because the APA, American Psychological Association, still defines gender dysphoria as a mental disorder. You cannot have individuals who are subject to mental disorders in the military for obvious reasons. This is the military. We fight. Don't want to have someone who's completely off their rocker and legally and like actually diagnosed with a mental disorder serving alongside you when everyone else's lives depends on you, especially in such a hot button. I mean, I guess it's still different, but in a it's still different than things like like someone's crazy or they have like a mental disorder that makes them for one thing or another. A hot button topic like transgender. I mean, think about some of the ramifications of that. Having people who, I mean, in the military where everything is where things are strict because it's a military, right? It's a no dirt kind of situation. A transgender policy in something that is such a hot button topic of the country that the military serves is something that has to be regulated to a certain degree. And Trump wasn't anti-LGBTQ. He was just like every conservative is. He's not accepting of every change. He's accepting of the right changes.
Yeah, and that specific policy, a lot of it was just to stop taxpayer money from funding those procedures like you were talking about. And so he was looking at and saying, listen, we have people that are paying taxes, that their money is going to the military, it's going to all these various things, and we don't want it paying for a surgery that is not needed.
A gender reassignment.
Yeah, it's not needed. And I mean, in terms of what Coulson was talking about it disqualifying you from the military, we have a ton more things that disqualify you from the military that are on a much smaller and much not as right. If you have a mental illness, you're disqualified from the military, and that would include transgenderism under it. But we have things in the military that disqualify you from it for much smaller reasons, and that's just because we have such a strict policy in order to make sure that everyone stays alive.
Jesse, yeah, when you're arm to arm fighting someone with your life depending on them, you don't want the person next to you to be someone diagnosed with the thing that says their brain is not working quite right, like it should be. And I mean, with everything that soldiers undergo, you would probably want someone that isn't already, I don't want to be insensitive here, but I'm going to say damaged goods. Don't get angry about that, people. I'm just making an analogy.
Yeah, well, not like damaged goods, but just you don't want people who have a problem, right? I'm pretty sure ADHD is disqualified from a lot of active military roles just because
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, you need to have laser focus at times, and you need to be in a good mental state that when you get into a situation where you need to make a snap decision, or you need to do something that requires a lot of stress and strain, you will be able to perform in that situation.
Yep, absolutely. One more comment here.
I just wanted to say I'm super happy I found your podcast, Coulson Herring, and this is Spencer. I am now following you both. Thank you so much for your share and your podcast. I appreciate you both. It's awesome.
Thank you. We're glad to have you on today. Thank you so much. I think I followed you back. I'm not. Let me check and make sure of that. Yeah, but yeah, thank you. We really enjoy having people on here, whether you believe what we're saying and you agree with us, or whether someone agrees against us. Put your comments in. Follow us, like the video, hate us. I don't care. Just be respectful. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk, because I mean the bit of what's the oh gosh, here I am. I'm going to cite the motto for the Washington Post: "Democracy dies in darkness." I actually believe that the Washington Post actually hurts democracy more than they help it. That's besides the point. There's a reason that the freedom of the press is defended and freedom of speech is defended, so people can speak their mind, they can have their opinions. And me and Spencer started the show because we've seen everything that's been going on, and especially in recent history, last 4 years, everything that happened to President Trump. And we're like, we want to talk about this. We want to do something about this. Maybe we can make a change. We can have an effect. And recently we had the sad passing of Rush Limbaugh, which, I mean, I guess that just kind of added some of the effect that he had on the conservative groups, and everything that he helped us to accomplish, and how unifying he really was. There's lots. I've seen like probably 3 or 4 other podcasts that have already started up after his passing, trying to help fill the gap that he left. And me and Spencer started before he passed. But we're committed to creating conversation and dialogue between people of agreeing or disagreeing, whatever it may be. But we just want to make sure you guys just keep it clean, keep it smart. Know what you're talking about. Don't just be regurgitating some Antifa kind of crap. Walk up and randomly accuse someone of being a fascist. You guys know what I'm talking about. Just keep it open. Let's have a conversation here. This is what we're all about. We got one more message. It's 12 o'clock now, so we'll just take this real quick and then probably wrap up after that.
Yep, no problem.
I guess that was an accident.
All right. And I'll give my end thoughts, and then you can give yours, Coulson, and then we can go.
All right. Yeah.
I first of all, thanks to everyone that's been listening. I think we've had such a great discussion, and we've had some really good points brought up by a lot of people, especially Gay Republican and I forgot the other guy, something talk show. They brought up some really good points and some interesting perspectives, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of get the news out about this Equality Act and get some people informed, because I know before Coulson brought it to my attention, I hadn't even heard about it, and it's been around for a while. So we really like this format that we're able to have people add comments. So my takeaway from this is just that it's really good to have this discussion and to be able to change minds through open debate like we have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we had the open talk, because we're interested in hearing everything that everyone has to say. Me and Spencer, we both agree that the Equality Act, it's not good. It's got obvious, very bad ramifications. The effects of which, should it be passed, will be felt nationwide and will change America fundamentally. There is no way that America will stay the same. And I think America as a nation will be redefined by a bill such as this, which people may say, oh, that's a little bit extreme, but I'm like, just do your research, guys. I mean, seriously, go look it up online. Go back and listen to this recording for anyone that hasn't been in here the whole time. After we hang up tonight, I mean, there's some pretty serious stuff that this needs to be addressed, and so that's why we enjoy having this format, because we can talk to you guys can talk to us, express your opinions, whether you agree or disagree, and yeah, we have this very stimulating conversation like we've had today. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Spencer, my name is Coulson, dang it.
My name is Spencer. We're 18 and American.
We're signing off. Everyone, thank you for joining today. We will see you next time.
Yeah.